This next section here is a couple different shots. This one right here is from a show. Some of you might be familiar with a network of sorts on YouTube. It's called Soul Pancake. And Soul Pancake puts out a number of shows. Kid President is a very popular one, actually, on YouTube. This one happens to be called The Flip Side. And this is a narrative show that's all of like 7 or 8 minutes long, very interesting. And The Flip Side works to bring up very interesting questions to think about life decisions, and encourage some great things, but thought-provoking, I should say. So we have a user and good friend, Don Money, who's the editor of The Flip Side, and he's provided some of these clips. I'll give you a quick pitch on the story. These two boys are sitting talking about this restaurant they've heard about, that you can make a reservation with your future self and have a conversation with your future self. And so the shorter of the two friends is telling this guy, it's real, man. If you ever get this business card with only a name on it, go there. So he's saying, yeah, right, that's preposterous. Well, the next clip here we have is his future wife that he happens to meet at that restaurant. And they say, hey, this restaurant might be a scam. Let's bail and let's go hang out. And they end up getting married and all that kind of thing. So that's her, and that's him, her and him. And finally, later on in the show, we have Steven Weber here, who is his 51-year-old self that was supposed to rendezvous with his younger self. And Steven Weber here sitting is like, gee, if I break this up, I won't be married to my future wife. There's a bit of twist in the story. Go watch. It's a really good one. So in any case, this is a, a 4-clip narrative here that we're going to work with. So let's assume that we've actually applied ColorFast already, and I'm just going to go through some of these clips. So the first thing I'm going to do is this one really hasn't been corrected at all. This is all R3D files brought into Avid Media Composer. And first thing we're going to do is just do a couple corrections on this one. So let's go into our primary corrections and just work with those just a little bit. So let's open this up. Let's see. Yeah, this is the one. I actually have 2 instances that I'm working with here. So I open up the primary correction, and we'll do a little white balance. Probably the best thing is right off of this cup here. And all of a sudden it takes care of a lot of that, that green hue. But we also want to bring in some brightness, maybe like a positive 40. And a little film gamma to kind of crush this up a bit, maybe a full like 25 or so. And next thing we want to do is work with our highlights, because back here in the sky, even though it was a shot with a red camera, you have this pinkish aberration that's really kind of blown out. We want to take care of that. So let's go into our secondary correction, and let's go into our highlight region, and let's just take that saturation out. Just knock that right down, and you can see I've really taken that pink out. If we push the saturation, you'll see what's there, that pink in the sky. So let's take that completely out, and let's bump up that level just a little bit to have a nice kind of glowing sky there. So you can see how you can really isolate regions. In fact, if we inspect, what is my highlight region? You see it's right over there. In fact, we can tighten that up just a little bit more even. Something like that. There you go. And take care of that highlight region. There you go. And then you can use ColorFast as a vignette as well. I actually have a second instance of ColorFast operating on this clip. Let's go into the secondary corrections, and we'll go into the masks. Well, first thing we want to do is, let's turn on that mask. Now the mask is enabled already. You see these 4 points where they're located. Well, let's go ahead and work with our high, mids, and shadows and kind of darken down the area. So let's go into our midtones, secondary correction, high, mids, and shadows, midtones, and let's knock this down to like a negative 30. And now you start to see the difference between what's outside and inside the shape. Then let's go to our lows or our shadows and just really bring it down to something like a negative 70 or so. There you go. And finally, let's go down to that mask and bring up some feather, maybe like a very nice feathering of that mask. So now you can see we can get a little bit of vignette going on as well. So again, before the correction and then after the correction. So let's go on with some of these other clips here. So here's a woman where we will look, this is before with kind of a red log in the R3D file, and the correction afterwards. I won't get into the correction that I did on her because it's going to show that we're going to walk through the exact same control set. But what I want to show is about how to get a grade on reviews. So let's look on to the next clip here. Let's get him smiling. There we go. And again, this is before ColorFast right here with the red log film, and this is after the correction right here. So a very marked contrast. In fact, if we just go back to the clips in our composer window, you can really see the difference right there. And finally, this last clip, let's see what that was beforehand. In fact, we can see it right here. And then after ColorFast has done its work. So now across all of these, I want to do a grade. So another great workflow is use ColorFast as a corrective tool, in which I did on these 3 clips, and put it on specifically on the clips or a track above, however you want to work, and then come back with a grade with a second instance of ColorFast. So what I'm going to do is go to my my effect palette here. Let's look for New Blue ColorFast, and I'm going to drag this down to the track above a sliced portion of the track and apply that right there. Let's go back to the girl kind of as our piece to work with. And now I have another instance of ColorFast operating on V3. And let's do a couple things here. So first thing, we want to go to that some presets here. So we can drop down in our not primary correction, but the presets area. And ColorFast comes with a number of presets, so you can kind of get a feel for what different kinds of looks could we make if we did this. Let me get up to V3 so you can really see what's going on there. All right, it says black, maybe a bloom and blue. Get some really nice images here. Let me just roll through a couple, maybe a center highlight kind of look, or diffuse. So you can really see the variety of looks that come with this very straightforward plugin. So maybe something like ominous. So you get the idea. In fact, let's do something like the era. That would be very interesting. So you pick the era as a preset, and you say, you know what, that's pretty close to what I want. This is looking a little ethereal. Maybe this is the kind of story I want to tell. But let's go into maybe the primary correction, do some simple things like just bring up the brightness, something of that nature. And now when I jump to these other clips, because it's an effect above, you have all these clips sharing that same grade. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a grade that I worked on a little bit. And so we're going to drop down, and in the same preset list, at the bottom of the preset list, you can save a preset. So you can start with a preset that maybe we provide, tweak it a little bit, make your own, doesn't matter, and save that off for later use. Well, I've done that, so I'm going to open up the preset that I've saved here. And so we're going to look for that warm grade. And so there's a nice warm grade. Now, getting back to the point that skin is really what we're sensitive to. The background, the wall and the couch and stuff, that's getting that nice orange. But there's just so much orange in her right now. I want to take care of that. So even in the grade, I can open up my secondary corrections and go to that skin preservation and go ahead and turn on or enable that skin preservation. And now I have a truer skin while everything else around it is quite warm. So in fact, I could go to the gentleman as part of our conversation, get his smile back. Really nice. And again, we could disable. Notice his skin and the brightness is very orange. We don't like that. So enable the skin preservation, gets it more true, brings it back to what this layer of the effect was given in the first place. So I hope that gives you a nice picture of how you can do grades across complete scenes inside Avid Media Composer. And so there you go. That's probably a good time to wrap things up and see if there's another batch of questions that came in.
Thanks, Travis. First clip question we had here was some of the clips are shorter. So how do you deal with longer clips in terms of lighting and color changes from the beginning to the end of a longer clip?
Well, that's a challenge for all of us, no matter what we do with different images. It does work off, of course, the luminance and prominence values of that shot. So if you're in this, very long, I should say, sequence. Let's say you're following someone through the halls of an office, and you're walking by these, windows of light and then dark shadows and things of that nature. You might find yourself needing to keyframe the different parameters within ColorFast, depending on what your objective was. I mean, if you had your high, mids, and shadows pretty much dialed in, that's probably going to be good. But if you're trying to track maybe a color mask, then in that case, you might end up keyframing some of the parameters. All the parameters are keyframeable within Avid Media Composer, so it depends on that moment. From experience, many shots are kind of the same lighting situation, and so in most cases, you won't be needing to keyframe a lot of these parameters.
The next question we had with regards to ColorFast and the amount of instances you can apply, is there a limitation to how many times someone can put ColorFast onto a clip?
In Avid Media Composer specifically, it's an interesting workflow of as many effects as you can sequence in that effect editor. I mean, there is no limitation. It is kind of tricky with the alt kind of thing. But as far as all NLEs are concerned, we don't care how many instances of ColorFast you put on. It's just one after the other. We had another question just yesterday about, can I do a color mask on one kind of color and then a color mask on another kind of color? And the answer is yes. You could do it on one kind of color and then put a second instance of ColorFast on and use all the tools once again to just work on that other color and get things done that way.
Another question we have is regarding the presets. Can you just walk through how to save and then load a preset that you've created?
Oh, sure. So let's drop down here and let's pick something like mechanize. And we'll do a little bit of adjustment in the primary correction. Let's bring up some brightness. So here's a certain grade that we have. And now I'm going to drop down that preset list again, and I'm going to save preset, and I'm going to call it Mechanize 1, and save that anywhere on my system, wherever I want to put things. And so now, let's go back to, let's say the girl here. Let's just go into her controls. I'm going to do preset, open preset. Oh, I think I'm sitting on color replace. I am. Let's go to ColorFast instead. There we go. Preset, open preset, Mechanize 1, open, and there we have Mechanize 1 operating on the girl that was walking down the street. Great.
Another question we have is regarding what is a good place to start in terms of just your primary color corrections and before jumping ahead, just to get kind of first one saying a natural look.
Right. I would definitely, actually, ColorFast is laid out in a logically sequential order. You can always jump around, of course, but if you follow from top to bottom, that's a really good flow. For example, in the primary correction, the first thing you want to do is you always want to get a good white balance. You want to start at a true level. So you go ahead and pick whatever's white or gray within your scene. And the next thing you want to do is maybe a little bit of saturation. You want to choose your exposure first before you choose your brightness. The reason being is exposure rises or falls your whole luminance range, as we were talking about. And you want to adjust that exposure so the bottom part of your luminance range is really where you want your shadows to be. And then next, use your brightness to extend or squash the high end of that luminance range to get as bright as you need to be. And then film gamma for a little crush. And you want to do the primary correction before you do the secondary corrections, because the secondary corrections are looking at your primary as a starting place. So just if you just follow right down the control set, I mean that's a very clean and good way to go.
The question we have is regarding a noise reducer. Is that something that should be, there's somebody going to use the noise reducer effect, which I know we have, but if someone's going to use an outside noise reducer effect or our own, is that something that's applied before or after your primary corrections have been made?
I would recommend putting a noise reducer on any clip prior to ColorFast operating. The reason being is, what is noise? But It's randomness in color. It's these aberrations that are in your image that you don't want. And if you have these aberrations operating or visible before ColorFast is doing its work, you're putting more effort for ColorFast to, especially in the chrominance values, which we have a lot less chrominance information in any image than we do luminance, right? So you're just you're needlessly confusing ColorFast potentially if there's a lot of noise. So you definitely want to put a noise reducer ahead of ColorFast to mellow out those color aberrations, those luminance aberrations. And then when ColorFast is operating, you have a much cleaner key on anything you're doing.
Thanks, Travis. Well, it looks like that's it for questions. So with that, we'll say thanks for joining us today. If you'd like any more information about ColorFast, to view our library of tutorials or to access our help files, also if you'd like to purchase ColorFast, you can visit the link at the top of the page and use the coupon CLR99. And as you can see here, there's links to all of our different resources. Feel free to submit any questions we might have missed to support@newblueink.com. Also, keep an eye out for the follow-up email that will include the full recording of the webinar. So with that said, on behalf of Travis White, as well as the NewBlueX team, thanks for joining us and have a great day.